Kuji was a traveler who found herself in a vast, complex maze, feeling lost and desperate for a way out. One day, as she wandered through the labyrinth, a shadowy figure appeared, gliding along the walls. This ethereal guide seemed to know the maze intimately. It moved with confidence and an air of authority that immediately reassured Kuji. The shadow spoke in a smooth, compelling voice, crafting intricate escape plans that involved left turns, right turns, and hidden passages. "Stay close," it whispered. "I know what's best for you. There are dangers around every corner. Trust me, I'll keep you safe." Its confidence was infectious, and Kuji followed it eagerly, feeling a renewed sense of hope. And as she navigated the maze, the shadow described the dangers lurking around every corner. With vivid detail, "Watch out," it warned. "There are people who will judge you harshly just ahead. They will ostracize you if you make a mistake. Stay with me, and I'll guide you through." The shadow's descriptions were so convincing, so precise, that Kuji couldn't help but believe it. And each warning reinforced her trust, keeping her close and reliant on its guidance. The fear of failure and judgment kept Kuji closely attached to the shadow, trusting its every word. The shadow continued, "There are unseen threats around every corner. People are out to get you, waiting for you to slip up. Only I know how to navigate these treacherous paths. Trust me, and you'll stay safe." The fear of the unknown, the hidden enemies, and constant potential threats bound Kuji to the shadow's guidance. What Kuji didn't realize was that the exit, the door to freedom, was always there. It had been within reach all along, but the shadow's purpose was to make sure she avoided it at all cost. The shadow knew that if she found the door and stepped out, its existence would end. It thrived on her fear, her confusion, and her dependency. The shadow was a master of deception, convincing Kuji that without it she'd be lost and vulnerable. The shadow said, "The path might look safe, but it's filled with hidden traps. You can't see them, but I can. Trust me. I will guide you." And because she didn't know, because she couldn't see what the shadow claimed to see, she believed it. She felt she had no other choice but to rely on its knowledge. Imagine the constant anxiety Kuji felt, always thinking about what would be lurking behind every corner and what might happen next. The fear that making a mistake would cost her dearly, her sanity, stability, or even life, created a never-ending cycle of dread. Kuji became so vigilant that missed everything else outside of the survival story given by the shadow guide. She completely overlooked all the green flags, her best opportunities in her life. And then where there were the red flags. Kuji met her boss, who was a director of a marketing company, at a networking event. He disrespected her from day one, but she didn't even see it. The shadow insisted she needed these people, that they were the only options she had. This story was so powerful and convincing that she believed it. She worked for him for years. Dead-end, ungrateful job, and Kuji feared every morning that she might be replaced. In the evening, she found solace in relaxation videos, and she was able to fall asleep soundly despite the hard time at work. Kuji also stayed in toxic relationships and superficial friendships, always postponing that truly mattered to her until later, because the shadow said, "Don't risk it." It whispered, "You might lose everything." Hoping, waiting, the clock is ticking. The shadow's voice was so compelling that Kuji stopped looking for the door out of the maze. It convinced her there was no door, only endless paths to navigate. "Keep going," it said. "Keep trying, you're almost there." And whenever Kuji gathered the courage to think that there might be more to life, the shadow immediately warned her of new dangers. "If you stray from this path, you'll face judgment, failure, humiliation. You'll end up alone, and when we are alone, our chances to survive are very small." The shadow kept her stuck in places with no progress, convincing her to settle for mediocrity, to ignore her desires and aliveness. This took a great toll on Kuji. She was surrounded by people who didn't truly value her, in situations that drained her, because the shadow had spun such a convincing story. The shadow told her to avoid the green flags of genuine connection and opportunity, and to ignore the red flags of toxic relationships and dead ends. It was a master of deception, keeping her in this perpetual state of anxiety and dependency. And then, one time, however, Kuji mastered the courage and ventured beyond the confines of its oppressive guidance and discovered something that truly brought her joy, pursuing her dream of writing a book. Kuji had always wanted to be an author, but life's responsibilities and the shadow's constant warnings had kept her from ever starting. And on this particular day, she decided to write. She sat down at her desk, the blank page in front of her, and she began to type. Words flowed effortlessly, her imagination coming to life on the page. She was writing about her relentless journey through the maze, capturing the endless twists and turns and her unwavering faith in the shadow's guidance. She poured her heart into her words, describing how sometimes, through the cracks in the walls, beams of light would seep through, touching her with this inexplicable warmth. This light, though she didn't fully understand it, filled her with fleeting moments of freedom and joy. The joy she felt when writing was intoxicating, a pure, unfiltered expression of her soul, and for the first time in years, she felt alive, connected to her true self. But the shadow, always watchful, began to whisper insidiously into her ear, dripping poison into her newfound happiness. "You are so selfish. How dare you to spend time on yourself when there are so many responsibilities waiting for you? What kind of person neglects their duties for a frivolous dream? And also stupid," it continued, "relentless. You are wasting precious time. Do you really think anyone will ever want to read what you write?" The shadow struck even deeper. "Remember when you were at school and you wrote that poem you were so proud of? Your teacher told you it was childish. You've never been a good writer. Why start now?" Kuji's heart sank as she remembered the sting of her teacher's words, and the excitement she had felt while writing began to fade, replaced by doubt and insecurity. "Wait until you have more time and more money. Right now, you simply cannot afford to waste time on this. It's difficult to market a book," the shadow said, its tone reasonable yet crushing. You have no experience, and there is too much competition. And so the guilt wrapped around Kuji like chains, heavy and unyielding. The joy she felt before completely disappeared. And the shadow's voice became her own, and she retreated back into the maze, back to the comfort of familiar suffering. It hurt less to stay within the shadow's boundaries than to endure the guilt of stepping outside them. You're simply unprivileged in your situation to do something new, the shadow whispered. What will people say when they see that you are pursuing a childish dream? You don't have enough money to waste on riding supplies, mentors, courses. You should be saving, not spending. You are not as good as others. Your writing is mediocre at best. Who would ever want to read it? Nobody needs your stories. Focus on what's practical, what's necessary. And so guilt was a powerful weapon, and Kuji felt its sting deeply. It was the guilt that kept her trapped, making her believe that any step towards her own happiness was a betrayal of her responsibilities, her worth, and her place in the world. And so she stayed in the maze, and the shadow's whispers convincing her that this was where she belonged. Eventually, Kuji grew exhausted and resigned. She settled for situations and people that didn't feed her heart and soul because venturing out was just too painful and anxiety-inducing. Yet the door, the exit, was always there, bathed in bright light with no shadows, just pure clarity. But as Kuji started to question the shadow's intentions and its plan, she opened her journal, filled with notes from every escape plan the shadow had given her. And the realization hit her like a punch to the gut. The shadow had been leading her in circles. Each path was a dead end, each promise a mirage. She looked at the shadow, still whispering about the next turn, and suddenly the truth dawned on her. The shadow never intended to help her to find the exit. Its purpose was to keep her in the maze, to keep her searching and seeking, to ensure she never found the door. The shadow thrived in the maze, feeding off her confusion and dependency. And the real reason it warned her about the dangers was to keep her scared and reliant on it. This shadow, which she trusted implicitly, was nothing more than a deceiver. It had been manipulating her all along, so she would remain lost in the maze, and its survival depended on her ignorance and fear, as it could not survive in direct light. It would do anything to keep her in the maze, and it was a master convincer. So, the maze represents uncertainty. The shadow was the false self, the knower, the reasonable voice in her head with a plan that convinced her that it knew what was best for her and for her future. But when Kuji saw the door, the clear, undeniable truth, she understood that she had been following a fraud. The shadow, which had seemed so authoritative and knowledgeable, was merely a figment of her own imagination, a belief, a mirage. And with this realization, she stepped into the light. And in that moment, everything changed. There was clarity and freedom, and the light was not just a physical illumination, but an awakening to her true nature. She saw that the shadow was not a real entity. It had no substance, no reality on its own. And when this was recognized, it was also clear that his plan to escape the maze was not real as well. As Kuji stood in the light, the weight of her past fears and anxieties dissolved as if they've never existed in the first place. She realized that she didn't need to relax or relieve her anxiety. It just became a distant memory, a funny meme. Anxiety was a product of her false self, the part of her that clung to control and certainty. So now that you've heard about Kuji's story, you might be wondering why anxiety feels so overwhelming and unpredictable and persistent in your life. So let's talk about it. Let's explore some details from the perspective of non-duality. Let's be real and maybe discover a life-changing exit that nobody really talks about. And thank you for being here. I really want to create a little discussion here about this topic because it is just so important that we start looking at anxiety from a completely different new light. However, this video is only for those who really feel deeply inside there is more to life than the life they are currently living. There is more to your potential. And for those tired of settling and tolerating things and people and who really like to live more authentically and really step into their higher purpose. And if this is not you, please just don't watch this video. It will be a torture for you if you're just looking for a quick fix. And so it is for you if you have been especially on some sort of a journey of self-development or spirituality for some time. And so first, let's consider this shocking perspective. The more we chase anxiety relief, the more anxious we seem to become. Wait, what? Well, this isn't just an observation from me deeply questioning people who watch relaxation and ASMR videos for the past decade. Research supports it as well. Studies have shown that despite of the growing number of anxiety relief apps and meditation techniques and different relaxation methods, including the 30 million ASMR videos, anxiety levels are skyrocketing. For instance, a study published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that people who frequently use anxiety relief strategies like mindfulness and relaxation exercises often experience higher levels of anxiety over time. It's a paradox. The more we try to relax, the more anxious we get. So let me briefly just define what I mean by anxiety here, because some people may imagine that anxiety is some sort of nervousness or insecurity, but it's so much more than that. Let's include self-doubt, feelings of feeling superior to others, overthinking and feeling unable making meaningful changes in life, procrastination, and just the endless scrolling on social media. And so, why is this happening? Why anxiety relief and anxiety go hand in hand? Ask yourself, just because you can sleep better, does it actually mean your underlying anxiety is resolved? What if understanding the root of your anxiety could lead to a more fulfilling and less anxious life? Because anxiety relief only scratches the surface. It just never goes to the root. Imagine trying to calm a raging storm by simply covering your ears. You might not hear the thunder for a moment, but the storm just continues and comes back again and again when you least expect it. It's like dealing with anxiety is like finding out you've been walking around all day with spinach in your teeth. It hits you when you're least prepared and most exposed. So I will share with you something I discovered from working deeply with my coaching clients for the past almost a decade. And that is that you can't deal with anxiety by trying to relax now, because anxiety is never about the present moment. It's always about what we imagine will happen in the future. It's about anticipating future scenarios that we believe will be somehow disastrous. And it doesn't even stop there. Deep inside, often completely unnoticed, we imagine the consequences of those future scenarios, and that there will be also bad consequences for us, that we will lose something that's dear to us, or we will never achieve what we believe we just need to protect us from harm, actual or social, like rejection or judgment. And this story stretches so far into the future, all the way to the very end of the story of you. And the mind creates all these possible things that could go wrong without our awareness. So when guided with a specific system that examines the underlying strategies of our self-identities, especially when they feel triggered, my client can vividly describe these images in great detail. So when we feel anxiety, we feel the anxiety not just from the present moment or some anticipated future event, but we feel the anxiety from all the imagined future scenarios. And it's a lot. It can feel just, that's why it feels so overwhelming. We are not just dealing with one fear, but a cascade of fears stretching far into the future. Listen, why am I even telling you this? I want you to know that anxiety or even procrastination is not your fault. Think of Kuji in the story. Is there anything she could actually do? Relax more or learn more techniques to relax in the moment? Or it was all about stopping, trying to simply look for the exit? Because deep inside, what you are really looking for is not another anxiety relief video or technique. What you are really looking for is the end of searching for anxiety relief, the end of needing to manage anxiety. What would your life look like without the anxiety management? And so, for those who are ready, the exit is available. Some of you may find helpful to find a practice that will show you how to dissolve anxiety instead of trying to overcome it. And if you are curious, you can find just that in my new online course to dissolve anxiety, procrastination, and self-sabotage. First Ignition teaches a powerful 7-minute morning practice. And by dismantling these anxiety-driven narratives every morning, you can start your day with clarity and purpose. It's really time to stop merely calming your anxiety, even though it helps in the moment, but it's time to start dissolving it at its root. So join me on this transformative practice to discover how you can live free from these paralyzing stories, opening up to a life filled with genuine opportunities and joy, even if you think that maybe it's not possible for you. Right now, when I'm releasing this video, the online course is still a few days in a pre-launch state, meaning if you would like to be the founding member, you will get a gift and a huge discount, and as well as the opportunity to ask any questions you like to shape it and be part of our fearless community. And if you are watching this video after it's been already launched, you will be able to access the course, or if you still have any doubts, some of the lessons for free. They are designed for you to really see through your anxiety's insidious plan, to understand the deceptive protection it offers, and more. So if you think this might be for you, just follow the link in the description and learn more the details on the website. It's liveunbound.com. So if you feel stuck in your life, unable to make real progress, constantly overthinking and doubting yourself, consider this. Your anxiety has a plan. It's not random. There is a part of you deeply invested in keeping you away from your greatest potential, love, freedom, and all the things that you truly desire. Think back of Kuji's story. Her shadow guide, the voice of anxiety, kept her trapped in the maze, convincing her to avoid the exit at all costs. This is what anxiety does to us. It keeps us spinning in circles, focused on survival, never realizing that the exit, the solution, is right there, within reach. Remember that this is your life, and you simply cannot compare it to anybody else or to what most people are doing. I think that if you watched this far, deeply inside, you know that there is just so much more to life than just this. There is so much more effortless action you could be taking every day instead of just overthinking about it. And there is also so much more connection and abundance and more than you are currently settling for. There are opportunities that are just right for you in the situation, hiding in plain sight because you are still tolerating certain people and situation in your life, even though you know they are not just feeding your heart and your soul. So join me on this journey to go beyond and beyond all these good ideas that makes no difference in your actual life, and follow the link in the description for more information, and I will be delighted guiding you to have more freedom in your life, more love and more enjoyment, so you can finally do what you really want to do despite what everyone else thinks. Inside of First Ignition online course, I'm also sharing my personal journey of anxiety and what I discovered that was completely mind-blowing, but it's just too personal to share it here. Do you know one of the most insidious strategies that the self-identity has for you is that it makes you think that you have time. It thrives on procrastination. It tells you that this is not the time to do anything important. First, you need more time, you need more money. It tells you that you are already too old, or maybe you are too young for that, or maybe too much of an alien. And you believe it. You believe these stories that keep you stuck in your life with no real progress, just hoping something will eventually change. Well, it doesn't. The older you get, it gets even worse. You'll end up with more addictions, more procrastination, more distractions, with a life filled with things you don't really want to do, constantly looking for exits. You may think that once you get that marriage or that new job or that better whatever, everything will change. It doesn't. The voice of anxiety will just get louder, and it will be hard to pacify it with relaxation or medication or meditation. And one day you will wake up and you will not even recognize yourself or your real life. It will feel like you're living somebody else's shadow life. The opportunity here is that you look for the exit today, now, because it's never found in the future. It's found when we stop believing the stories and justifications and excuses about why we can't do something or why we are not ready, and we simply follow our intuition, the voice from deep inside that tells you, if not now, then when? I know that this topic can be a little polarizing because there is so many of you that are really finding a lot of value in relaxation. And of course, sometimes that's all it's needed. Sometimes we simply need to relax our entire nervous system and get ready for the day ahead. What I'm talking about here is really more about going to the root. And this is really only for you if you feel like you're stuck in your life and there is maybe those people or those situations that you still tolerate, or you're still settling for, those are all signs that there is just something that needs to be, we need to pay attention to something that's a little bit deeper. And, all this industry of relaxation and all these popular beliefs, techniques, it's really not helping you. I've been doing so much research around this, and I just find that the more techniques are there, the most sophisticated, cutting edge therapies that people participate in, often there is more anxiety and there is more stress. So it's something to consider, that perhaps it's not just about pacifying those anxieties inside of you. Maybe they are talking to you, and maybe they are saying something, not directly in a language, because the anxiety really just tries to distract you from what's important. But when we listen, like between the lines, we can hear that, or we can notice that anxiety always comes in those moments when we try to step outside of our comfort zone, when we are ready to finally say our truth, or when we are finally to start a new business, or when we are finally, when we try to do something that really feels dear to us, or it means something to us. And it's just right there, tries to keep us in that comfort of that survival story. And yeah, everybody has completely different survival story, and it really has nothing to do with reality. We just believe it, and we don't even know that we are doing it. There is already a story, and it's very clear in our imagination, deep in our minds, that tells us exactly what we need to do to achieve some sort of safety or love or approval, which is the same thing. It's just safety. That's what makes us feel good, or that's what makes the self-image feel good. And so the willingness to look a little bit beyond that, it doesn't come from anxiety. That willingness to look beyond it already comes from the space deeply inside of you, and it is connected, or it is your true nature, because the anxiety or the self-identity, it cannot really look, it cannot really question anything, because it knows, just like the knower in the story. And some people think, well, I don't know what's going to happen. But you do know. Deep inside, there is a part of you that does know. It shows you these movies, these images, the story of what might happen. And we really believe it. We take it as truth, because the mind doesn't see the difference between those images and reality, and we don't even notice. But what's happening on the outside is that we are reacting to those images. So if I believe that the only way for me to survive or to be happy is by getting married, then I will do anything to get married. Especially if it tells me that I need to get married by a certain age. And if that is not happening, I will live a completely inauthentic life. I will fall in love with people. I will ignore all the red flags, because the only thing that really matters is that fantasy. And that fantasy completely overrides this whole reality. So when we meet new people, we don't really take them for who they are. We don't take the time to maybe get to know them, because the fantasy, if they fit into that fantasy, if they fit into what we believe that will be good for us, and notice, I'm only saying believe, because believe always comes from that story. It has nothing to do with reality. So if they fit in that story perfectly, that's it. We stop investigating any further. We take them already. They are the right person for me. this is the perfect partner for me, this is my husband, my wife. And yeah, we find out later that we didn't take the time, we didn't really see for who they truly are, even though the red flags were there from the day one. They were showing us who they were from the day one, and continuously. We just didn't believe them. We were just completely ignoring those signs, those red flags, because we simply knew that they are the right person. It only becomes obvious when we look back in our lives and we see that we did indeed ignored all the red flags and the green flags. And sometimes we don't even know what they are, because the fantasy is the only thing that matters. And this is so important because the survival story is just so strong. It's not like some option that we have that sometimes we may get into these fantasies and stories. The thing is that they really override our reality 100% of time. So much so that we take them for reality. And then the confusion starts, and then the anxiety starts, and the stress, and all these emotions. And we try find some fix and find some solutions, but there is just none, because the problem never existed in that story. It doesn't matter how much we're gonna be working on ourselves or improving ourselves, no matter how much money we make or any of these things. It just doesn't bring us this long-lasting satisfaction that we are really looking for, or that we think that we are looking for. But what we are actually deeply looking for is the end of searching, is the end of trying. As I mentioned already before, it's the end of looking for anxiety relief. Imagine that you don't need to look for anxiety relief. You simply are. You don't even think about it, because it's not needed anymore. And so that's what we are really desiring. And it's really not out of reach. It's not as far as you think. Some people believe that they just have too many, some sort of blockages. Maybe something's wrong with them even, or they're just not as privileged as others. And all of these things, we're just comparing ourselves. We are comparing ourselves to those images about how we should be. We are comparing ourselves to the images of how others are. We're comparing the image of their best self to the image of our worst self. And if there is nobody to compare to, we also compare our current self-image to our past self-image, in which perhaps the past self-image was much better or somehow happier. And so we always find reasons to somehow feel lacking and not good enough. And not only that, it's not only about not feeling good enough. In fact, it always oscillates, it's duality. So whenever we don't feel good enough, next thing we feel superior to others. And the self-identity just cannot wait to take this position, either feeling not good enough or feeling better than others people. So there's this constant disconnection and separation. And the whole purpose of the self-identity is drive you into isolation, to feel isolated, alone, small, comfortable and safe, so you don't step outside, because outside, as it was in the story, on the sunshine, the shadow cannot survive. And it's not only that the shadow cannot survive. When you step on the sun, or this light, it's recognized that the shadow is not real, and it has never been real. It has no substance, and its plan is not only flawed, it's completely deceptive on purpose. Everything that the self-identity, the shadow guide, everything what it does has a purpose. Everything in your survival story has a purpose. And deep inside, you already know what to do. You cannot afford to make any mistakes that are away from that story that you believe that leads to survival and feeling safe. And when I speak about survival, it's really just rarely about physical survival. It's mostly about the survival of the self-identity, the self-image. It cannot survive if there is judgment, ostracism. It wants to avoid anything that's risky. And none of those things are real. Nobody is ever judging you. Everybody's just judging themselves, projecting it. And so when we start questioning these stories, it's the way to step through the door. Because the one that really questions can never be the self-identity. The self-identity doesn't question. It knows. It knows. And I know that it feels like, oh no, it doesn't know. It just assumes. No, it knows. It really thinks it knows. And it's convincing you to believe it. And when we don't question those stories, we simply don't have another choice than to believe it. But you're not that shadow. You're not that self-identity. You are what is left without it. And in my online course, you will be discovering exactly that. Sometimes I always feel talking about your true nature feels so woo-woo. It feels like everyone imagines something completely different. And my entire life I've been so dissatisfied with different spiritual teachings, even psychology books. And because they were so vague when it comes to true freedom or true freedom from anxiety. And in this course, it is not vague. I will give you the exact 3 steps. And I already said, it's simple. It's so simple that anyone with an open mind can do it. Anyone imaginative. And I know that a lot of people, if they feel some sort of anxiety or self-doubt, usually they are pretty imaginative, because it's the imagination without our awareness that shows us all these future disastrous scenarios. And it can be a lot to deal with. especially when we don't know it's happening and are focusing on only trying to pacify anxiety in the moment. Sure, it makes us feel better, we can get better sleep, and sometimes that's all it's needed. But when your life is really calling you for more, it's time to pay attention and to look a little bit deeper to what it is that your deeper self really wants to do here. And when I say deeper self, it's really it's not disconnected from you. It's not like some sort of higher self that lives outside of time and space and that outside is far away. It's this. It's that which you really are. Now, here, this. And the only thing that is in the way, it's not a thing, are just those beliefs and the stories that override our true seeing. And once you have that vision to see what is true and what is not, it's a space where anxiety simply dissolves. And so in the first ignition, we are not only working on just dissolving anxiety about the future event, because as I already mentioned, your storyline or the timeline, the survival story, it stretches all the way into the future, to the end of you. And so there are so many different consequences that one thing can lead to another thing. If you don't get, if you don't do the job interview right, it will lead that you will not get a job, and then you will have a hard time. Maybe you will end up in some other job that you really don't like. Then you will end up on the street. I mean, when you go for a job interview and you feel anxious, it's never about the job interview. The story underneath is already showing you all these they're not possibilities, they are truth for the mind, for the shadow guide. It knows, it's the knower. It shows you this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And we believe it, but we don't know that we are believing. We are just feeling that anxiety from all the future consequences at once, now. And it's a lot. That's why it feels so overwhelming. And none of those are true. They are completely disconnected from reality. They are part of the insidious plan that the self-identity have to survive. So this is not about survival anymore. This is about thriving and really having a fulfilling life. If you are into having more authenticity, more connection, living with purpose, then first ignition might be for you, because you will focus on dissolving one fear, one anxiety in the morning in just 7 minutes. The practice is so specific to put those 3 steps into those 7 minutes that you really have to focus, full attention. And then at the end there is open focus, open awareness, where it's dissolved and you feel that immediate relief of anxiety, but it's different than just trying to relax, because you haven't only just relaxed your body and your mind, your heart, you have dissolved the whole story. So thank you so much for watching, for listening, for taking this as maybe something to consider, maybe something to put on your to-do list. No, I'm just joking. Forget about all the to-do lists. How about if you start doing what's important now? Because really, there will never be a better time to do what's important than now. You will be always postponing it until later, until later. And then later you will look back into your life and you see that you've been doing all these things you never wanted to do, and you always postponed the things that you wanted to do until later, and the later never came, and now you're here and there is no more time anymore. So we never really know how much time we have left. It's only the self-identity that constantly whispers to us that we have infinite time. We can do it later. And all the happiness is found in the future. So deceptive. I would love to know your thoughts on this. So leave those in the comments. And if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer them. You will have the link to my website also in the description. So you can also contact me privately through the contact form if you wish. And otherwise, I'm looking forward to either see you inside of the online course, which I'm just extremely excited. I'm just in the middle of making it now. And people who have already pre-ordered are helping me so much. And those are the founding members, the very first ones who really took that courage and leap of faith, even though, of course, there's no risk involved in this. I always offer money-back guarantee for those people. If it's just not for you, it doesn't resonate, it's not for you, then I don't want you to, I want to make it as stress-free as possible. So you have this choice. It's just an option to give you, because I am going to be creating more videos. And most of my videos, they are relaxing. People find them very relaxing, sleep-inducing, but also a little bit thought-provoking, offering a different option to choose from.